Our speaker hails from Reno, Nevada, or Washoe County. Now here is a community that takes in more animals per capita than most communities in the U.S. It takes in roughly 4 times the rate of dogs and cats than the city of Los Angeles. It takes in 5 times the rate of animals than San Francisco. It takes 7 times the rate of animals than New York City, and over 2 times the national average. They're taking in roughly 35 animals for every 1,000 human residents. On top of the high intake rate, they are a tourism-based economy, and they have been especially hard hit by the recent economic downturn. In fact, where many communities are now seeing improvements, Nevada still is feeling the effects of that downturn. Nevada has the highest unemployment rate in the entire country. It has one of the lowest per capita education funding rates. It has a very high foreclosure rate. And I like Reno and I like Washoe County, so Mitch, forgive me. Washoe County has a city within the county that has the highest per capita felon rate in the U.S., and a national organization said Reno was the 2nd drunkest city in the nation. So if there was ever a community where no kill could not be achieved according to traditional sheltering dogma, there are people out of work. There are people losing their homes. They are taking in an inordinate number of animals compared to other communities. They have some felons, and apparently a good number of them are drunk. It's Washoe County. There is a community where this program should not work, but in fact it is working. County-wide last year, the save rate was 91%, and as Mitch will tell you, at his municipal open admission shelter, their save rate is in the mid-90s. So how they did that? Well, how did they do that? That's the question. The technical aspects of what Mitch is going to be talking about, some of the programs that he's put into place, and some of the other programs that other shelters in the community have put into place, is in a zip file. And you can download that zip file at the following link, and I will leave that URL up for a couple of minutes so you can copy it down, but we'll also mention it at the end of the webinar, and Mike Fry will email everyone with the link as well. So that's the link to where you can find some of Mitch's documents. But the short answer of how they achieve save rates in the mid-90s is people. People, in redemption, I argued that we don't have an animal problem, we have a people problem. And at Washoe County Regional Animal Services, it's the people that are making the difference. The more educated shelter staff are, the more patient they are, the more helpful they are, the more people in the community will see the shelter not as their enemy, but as a resource to find lost pets, a resource to resolve pet-related problems, and that will result in more lives saved. And that, of course, starts with leadership, which is what the Reno, Nevada team has. So with that, welcome Mitch.
Thank you, Nathan. And after all those statistics, I know why I'm so tired every day. I need to show my screen. Hang on. And we'll get started with this because we've only got a limited amount of time, and I really want to get a lot of responses from the people that are viewing this webinar and get some questions answered for them. We like to think of animal control as a win-win approach to our program, and try to do things that are in the best interest of the citizens in terms of economics, but also in terms of customer service, and just a kinder, gentler way of approaching this. And we find that it economically makes sense. And in the economic climate that Nevada and Reno, Washoe County area find themselves in, it's become critical that we do so, that we find a more efficient way to deliver core government services. And so with that said, I'd also like to just tell people that, you know, I think as a child I was traumatized by the dog catcher and Lady and the Tramp, And so when I got into it, I was first in the animal profession as a professional dog trainer, and then accidentally got into this profession, but fell in love with it because I saw the potential for the way it should be. And I've been fortunate in my career to move things in that direction. And so with that said, I want to tell you that in reality, as Nathan described our community, it's not as dire as he makes it seem or as it seems on paper. It's actually a wonderful place to live, great people here, beautiful country, and we don't have people drunk and committing felonies all over the place, but I'm sure those statistics are accurate. I had some serious doubts about whether this community was the right place for a no-kill attempt. And we, pre-no-kill movement, we're euthanizing thousands of animals every year, as most shelters around the country are doing. We had basically 2 full-time staff euthanizing much of the day. We had a huge walk-in freezer, 15 barrels or so, large 55-gallon type barrels filled with dead animals. Very unpleasant sight for someone who cares about animals. And the renderers would show up every day and empty those barrels, and staff would refill them again. You know, staff burnout obviously high, because we tend to want people who care about animals in the animal control profession, and not everyone can shut that down. And so you get a fair amount of staff burnout. And, you know, the walk-in area, the euthanasia area, pretty much a smelly, kind of a disgusting sight to most people. So along came no-kill. I didn't really care for that term because I'm in animal control. We don't like to think of what we do as killing, and so we prefer the term euthanasia. And so there's some respect for the people who have to do the work in terms of using that. However, there are some drawbacks to softening that action, and it certainly is killing. But anyhow, I at the time did not really believe that Reno was the right community for this, and I thought, well, no-kill probably work in a more affluent community, and I've worked in those around the country and could see where that had possibilities. But we have a more transient community and a rather high abandonment rate, so I just didn't think mathematically it would work. So I had to do some math myself, and I said, well, we won't ever know if we don't try. If it failed, it shouldn't be because government and animal control wasn't willing to think outside the box, look at things a little differently, or simply because we didn't like the term of no-kill as an industry. And I also realized, too, that even if we didn't achieve the ultimate goal, that we would at least be better off than we were right now. And so there was no harm in trying. So as I continued to do the math, I understood that if we did succeed, we could save many, many thousands and thousands of dollars in euthanasia cost, the staff time that goes into it, as well as the equipment and drugs and everything else involved in that, not to mention the renderer, and those costs are going up dramatically. We could lower our staff burnout. That involves HR, training, hiring procedures. You know, in government, that's very costly. Certainly the animals would be happier, but I kept looking at it from a business perspective, but also thought, boy, that would sure help increase our image of animal control as a profession within the community. And since I didn't want us to be perceived as the dog catcher and the lady in a tramp, that was important to me. So I did some more math, and I just realized all I had to do was think outside the box. I had to check my traditional thinking, and actually found myself having to do that quite a bit. It's amazing how programmed we get and get locked into the way we've always seen it and viewed things, and you just have to stop and pause and say, wait a minute, let's reanalyze this. Maybe my beliefs and thoughts are wrong. I think Lincoln was known for saying that he held strongly to his beliefs until he heard something that changed him. But he indicated he was willing to rethink things, and so I did that. I tend to think like a business person, so that was easy for me. And I knew that the citizens, and especially in this economic climate, but even before the big bust, that it's important for government to be efficient and not waste taxpayers' money. So I also started to look for ways to help in terms of the outcome. So we're giving this a shot, but what could I do to contribute to it? And so I was already a big believer that pets belong home with their families. And so as an animal control officer, I have always taken animals home whenever possible. Might have to give them a citation, warning, whatever was appropriate, but I believe the animal was better off at home than in a shelter. And that was just my beliefs on what's best for the animal. So, but it turns out that also makes good business sense from an economic point of view. So I'll tell you the things that drive me as I work in my profession, you know, and I truly do love my profession when it's done correctly. And there are many of us out there that want to do it correctly. Most people go their whole lives never making a difference. And we in this profession get to make a difference every day, assuming we choose to do so. And I love my community. And as Martin Luther King said, if you're going to be a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper. And so even when I was a busboy when I was 16 years old, actually I was 15, I lied about my age, and I wanted to be the best. So these are how I feel about things and why I work hard at what I do. And while I might dislike the term no-kill, I truly, truly hate the term dog catcher. And the last thing I want to do is conduct myself in a manner where people perceive me as a dog catcher and not an animal control officer. And I think my staff feel the same way. So here's our business model. Real simple. Get the animals back home to their owners. We call it return to owner, RTO. And it's good business. It's good PR. It's just simply, to me, the right thing to do. And when I work with my officers to get them to start making a greater effort in this regard, I got some resistance. It wasn't what they were brought up thinking, and it was a little different for them. And I knew I'd turned the corner when one of my officers came to me and she says, well, you'd be proud of me. I picked up 6 dogs today. And I said, why would that make me happy? She said, because I got 5 of them home. And the look in her face of real pride and joy said it all to me. And that's when I knew I'd kind of turned the corner here in our agency and getting people to really embrace that concept that this animal, we shouldn't be punishing people through their pets. We should be getting those animals back home where they belong. And that reduces cost to the community and abandonment by people who, when they're impounded, have to pay more penalties and fines and impoundment fees and go through the hassle of getting them back. It just adds to their frustration with the animal and increases their likelihood that they'll fall out of love and abandon it. So anyhow, it really all starts with treating people the way you want to be treated. And so on RTO, the return to owner, it reduces facility needs, which can save millions of dollars for a community. We can reduce shelter operating costs with less staff, food, all of the things that go into the care and housing of animals. We reduce the risks and associated costs to the handling of the animals, of the diseases. We reduce the abandonment, and that typically runs in the 50 to 75% range at most shelters throughout the country. So if we can lower the euthanasia disposal costs and the burnout and the associated HR costs, and people, I find my staff are feeling much better about the work they do because they're not feeling as though they spend so much of their time euthanizing pets that they actually really care about. In order to get the return to owner where you need to have it, and we're not where we want to be,
but we're working hard to get there, and we're using technology, but it all starts in the field. The officers have to, instead of thinking that they're a tow truck driver and their goal is to impound as many things as they can, they need to think at that a little differently and realize that their goal is to get as many of these animals back home to their owners as possible. And so it requires a little more effort on the part of the officers and increases their workload a little bit. But for the few extra minutes they spend out there checking with someone in the neighborhood, do you know where this dog lives? Have you ever seen him before? Scanning them, doing their little work on the computer, looking at ID tags, looking for phone numbers, maybe with a permanent marker on a collar, and looking for all of those things. And our officers, I'll show you later, have computers in their vehicle. They can look up the microchip, rabies tags, licenses, and do some research on it. They spend a few minutes researching. There's a good chance they can get this animal back home. And so that dramatically saves staff time in the shelter. On intake, it has to be examined, all kinds of medical notes taken, it has to be vaccinated, and then put in a kennel and then fed and watered. All of this time, a lot more time goes into that than it does into returning the animal to its owner. We enhance customer service and support. It dramatically reduces abandonment at the shelter. If you just do the math, and even if you have a 50% abandonment rate, you're looking at a significant impact on it if you can dramatically increase your return to owners. And it takes a lot of pressure off all of our other collaborative partners in terms of the rescue work they have to do. And so the officer's responsibility simply is to call all phone numbers and on any ID on the animal. We don't care if it's not a license. Our main goal is to get it home. Scan the animal for a microchip. They all have scanners. They're not that expensive. In terms of your cost of doing business, it's a lot cheaper to buy a scanner. You check the lost animal reports because the officers have computers in the car, but it can be a laptop. Air cards now, all of this technology is becoming far more advanced and affordable and can make an animal control officer's job much, much easier and make them much more successful at getting animals back to their owners. They can check with area residents. We had one officer did that and finds out the people turning it in were the actual owners, reporting it as a stray. So the officer had a talk with that person. They leave notice at any suspected resident. Somebody says, well, I might be that house there. They'll leave a notice letting them know, hey, if this is your pet, please contact us. They will make contact through their cell phones whenever possible with the owners. They will secure it in the yard or leave it with a friend or a neighbor. I know some communities, their animal control programs, and here in the past it was that way. Oh, you can't leave it anywhere. You have to impound it. If you touch it, you must bring it in. And there was a story I'll get to a little later where an incident like that occurred in Minneapolis back in the Twin Cities when I was early in my career. Anyhow, occasionally you're going to have the arrest. And after the arrest, you're going to need to rescan for a microchip because sometimes the scanners malfunction or don't pick it up, and you need to rescan it again. We photograph and upload them to our website as well as the Pet Harbor website so that people can look online to see if their animal's here. Again, they'll recheck for ID, and if they weren't able to contact them in the field, they'll reattempt to contact them here. We'll notify them by mail if necessary. We'll even send an officer out to check that house again later. We'll check all loss reports, recheck everything again. We will also have our pet detectives recheck everything our staff did. It's a great volunteer opportunity. We don't want to make any mistakes. And we are human, so we will make mistakes. Double checking our work like carpenters do. Measure twice, cut once. But each morning the staff will go through everything, and we'll hold animals longer if we need to, and we'll waive fees when appropriate if we need to. Now we've kind of got a billing system, so I'll go into that in a minute. And we do provide welfare and safe holds for owners of pets who have been hospitalized on emergencies or placed in jail on an emergency. So we do try to accommodate those situations for citizens. Bottom line is it's great public relations, and I'll deviate a little from this and tell you we just were the recipients of a bequest and a will for $160,000. It's not every day that animal control conducts themselves in a way where they get that kind of gift from someone in their wills, and so it can have a monetary impact. We don't do it for that reason. We love our citizens in our community, and they love us, and it's a win-win. I mentioned the Minneapolis incident. Negative media. I remember when the Minneapolis Star and Tribune newspaper had a section, front page of one of the sections, dog owner bites dog catcher. And an animal control officer picked up the dog. The lady come running up. Hey, that's my dog. And he refused to give it back to her. He said, no, you'll have to come to the shelter and bail him out. And she bit him. So I was proud of her. And I always vowed that would never be a headline in any paper where I worked. But the officers enjoy their work a lot more because they're receiving tremendously positive feedback. And so it's great for employee morale and retention of employees because they feel more job satisfaction, feel like they truly are serving the public. And so there's less stress and exposure for the animal, and you have lower vet costs and fewer citizen complaints. And trust me, in government, citizen complaints can be very time-consuming. I always loved this because it was brief but to the point. The public support. We get letters like this all the time. Here the dog made it home safe and sound. Officers brought him home, and he was at a convenience store nearby. And fortunately, this owner had filed a loss report. But I love the part where she says, he's very tired and hungry and is getting a microchip and a license when he wakes up. But thank you so much for all you are all truly great and do great things. And this is how the public responds when you, I think, take the right approach to what animal control should be. I mean, I was a master dog trainer, nationally recognized, and I've had my dogs get away. So if that can happen to me, I think it can happen to almost anyone, and we just need to remember that a dog has 4 legs, a mind of his own, and can outrun most of us. And with that, accidents are going to happen, and I think we need to treat people as if it's an accident until proven otherwise, and then we can still punish them with a citation rather than holding their animal ransom, which just encourages abandonment. So like any good business, you got to have marketing, and that's a team effort. Everyone must constantly sell the benefits of return to owner. Let people know that that's what your program's about. That is your goal. That is your mission. And ask for their help. Identification. That's simple on their part. Give us some form of identification, preferably a microchip or a dog license, because it's more complete information for us. Just a phone number, we'll live with that if that's all you can do. But a microchip is permanent. You don't have to worry about it becoming faded, wearing out, falling off, becoming lost. Promote the website and the ability and the convenience of looking for a lost pet. If it's convenient, they're going to look longer. And this is very important when it comes to cats. So utilize technology to its fullest with microchips and online services and capabilities. The other thing you have to do is you have to market the benefits. People don't mind buying a dog license if there's a perceived benefit. If it's just a tax, they're only going to pay it if you catch them. And so you need to let them know. And in another community where I marketed it so successfully that the cat owners started demanding to be able to buy licenses because they thought their cat should get the same free ride home too if they were ever picked up. And I mentioned earlier billing. The concept in animal control of holding an animal until you can pay in full, kind of saying, well, either pay us all the money, or you can't have them back till you do, and if you don't, there's a good chance we're going to kill it. Just is not a very customer-friendly way of handling citizens, and who are the taxpayers who do pay for our program. And so if you want their support, you can't really treat them that way. And it's bad business. You'll dramatically increase your abandonment, and you won't get any more money. You'll just spend more money euthanizing the animals that you wouldn't give back to the owner. So I find that to be a poor business model, and we offer billing whenever someone says they don't have the money. And to make sure that they're not kidding us and then not paying, we have our collections department find out if they really don't have the money. And if they don't, how is keeping the animal and killing it going to change that? You know, you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. So anyhow, some of the other things we ran into as we were changing things here is this response I would run into frequently, drive me crazy. We've always done it this way. And I have never been able to get anyone to explain to me why that justifies doing what you're doing. We've always done it this way. I just never, it never made sense to me. But you'll run into that when you try to change things. And then I'd get the comment, well, every day I come in here, something's changed. Well, to me, if you're trying to be better today than you were yesterday, you're going to have changes. I think it was John F. Kennedy that said, change is life, is the law of life, and I believe that. So, and I've come to the realization that most resistance to change in our thinking and the way we do things is a form of laziness. And I mean, I like it when nothing changes and I can just coast. But so I have days that I feel that way too and understand that feeling, but I wouldn't want to be that way every day. With our feral cats, we embrace TNR, support that. The National Animal Control Association and many other groups are coming around to that way of thinking. They didn't always think that way. Trap and kill, trap and kill. The traditional approach is ineffective and it's too costly, and in reality, it's a fight you can't win. So let's find a more humane and common sense approach to that, and we're doing that. Your regulations, your laws, your codes, whatever you call them in your community, make sure your regulations support and are in harmony with your mission and philosophy, and not the other way around. Don't form missions and philosophies based on your laws. Have the laws reflect your philosophy. And we're busy doing complete code revisions right now, as a matter of fact. Keeping that in mind, we're going to have an Oreos law in our codes that says if there is a bona fide rescue group that wants an animal, unless there's a safety reason not to give it to them, we must give it to them, assuming they'll take it out in a timely manner. That's good business, that's good PR, that's common sense. And so my final business thoughts are, in the business world, you have acquisitions and mergers. In government, we call it collaborations and partnerships. And so we have many, Washoe County and Nevada Humane Society, the SPCA, Pet Network, our Community Cats program for the feral cats, many smaller, some breed-specific, what I would call, and not to mean it negatively, but mom-and-pop rescue groups, specialized rescue groups. And we work with the Truckee Meadows Community College. So we collaborate wherever we can, and government needs to do that as much as possible. It means working with rescue groups to save the animals, which in turn saves taxpayers the cost of euthanasia. And again, unless it's dangerous, government should never stand in the way of an animal being rescued, especially if a bona fide rescue group is requesting the animal. Our success is a willingness to embrace continuous process improvement. And if you learn nothing or take nothing else from this, my contribution to this webinar, remember that. You have to be able to embrace continuous process improvement. You can never stop making it better, tweaking it, improving it. It's what I live for. It can never be perfect, but every day I'm trying to make it better. And So it does require, you have to understand you can't solve the problem with the same thinking that created it. You can't get a different outcome if you keep doing the same thing. Nathan mentioned that. You need to be able to play well with others, even if you aren't in agreement with each other on everything. You have to resolve. You have to understand you don't have to resolve every concern before you do something. If that's the case, you'll never get anything done. And my staff constantly are going, well, what about this? What about that? Yes, you need to consider those things, but you can't let every what if, every fear stop you from trying something. And at the end of the day, you better be able to maintain a sense of humor and laugh at yourself as well. The truth, a German philosopher, Schopenhauer, I think it was, 1800s, said there were 3 phases of truth. Ridicule, violent opposition, and finally acceptance as the obvious. And I'm paraphrasing here. But I have to say, in all the changes I've made, that is so true. And I will say my personal experience has shown it to be true. I want to touch on transparency and record keeping. You can't manage what you can't measure. So you need to record things and track things. You need to have benchmarks. But more importantly, you have to share that information with the community, because you can't ask them to help fix something if they don't know it's broken. And it truly will take your entire community. This is a picture of our facility. As you can see, it's a very beautiful facility. The one before this, not so beautiful. Pretty typical of most communities, pretty ratty, run down, horrible. Here are some other shots of it. The front of the building, the lobby, the hallway, the medical suite, the dispatch center, outside kennels with nice courtyards. All of this was made possible due to transparency and collaboration. It would not have happened without those 2 things. And so communities that are keeping things quiet because they're not proud of what they're doing, think they need to hide the problem, need to rethink that. So things that any program can do, big or small, and I've done small, rural, tiny city, small, suburb, and in a larger metro area, certainly not LA, but is the return to owner. Even if you have to charge a fee to do it, and let them send it in when they can afford to pay it, a billing kind of concept. Some communities have done that. But you've got to embrace technology if you're going to have any shot at this. So online photos of the animals, everybody can do that. I don't even care if you're a small rural community. Microchips and scanners and those kind of programs and scanning animals, again, it's cost effective. Computers in vehicles, laptops are a dime a dozen. Air cards are really good and really inexpensive these days. So everybody can have that ability. Volunteer pet detectives that double check the lost and founds and do that kind of work. It's invaluable, protects your liability, improves your customer service. Collaborate with the rescue groups and others. I touched on that before. It's worth mentioning again. Collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. Provide billing services. Stop the ransom. Okay. With that,